Okay, time now for our business update. And for that, I'm joined in the studio by Brian Quinn. Good morning, Brian. And we're starting with the Greek bailout. The country's European creditors have agreed to release the next payment in its rescue plan.
Yes, and not a moment too soon. Greece badly needed that €8.5 billion payment to avoid default on debt coming due in just a few short weeks. One major development in yesterday's agreement, the involvement of the International Monetary Fund. Director Christine Lagarde says she'll propose an approval in principle that the fund contribute to the bailout. But debt relief for Greece remains a sticking point. Both the IMF and Greece had been hoping for concrete measures to ease the country's crushing debt load, currently nearly twice its total yearly economic output. But EU creditors said that will have to wait until the current bailout program ends in 2018. Greece's finance minister said that while Athens didn't get everything it wanted from the deal, progress was made.
We feel that after this Eurogroup, there is a much greater clarity on for both the Greek people and for financial markets. Is it as much clarity as the Greek people deserve after all the reforms that have been carried out and all the sacrifices that have been made? Perhaps not. But we recognise that we do not want the perfect to be the enemy of the good. And we also recognise that all sides have tried to give and compromise to some extent.
And staying with Europe, leaders here in France and in Germany are trying to limit foreign investment.
That's right. French President Emmanuel Macron heads to Brussels next week for his first EU summit since taking office last month. On the agenda there, curbing too much foreign investment in the EU, which he argues is dangerous for key sectors. Macron wants to implement a policy that will restrict foreign takeovers of important companies. That plan is backed by both Berlin and Rome, though some worry that it edges too close to trade protectionism. Rebecca Rosman has more.
A push for a protective Europe, backed by a number of top EU leaders, including German Chancellor Angela Merkel. French President Emmanuel Macron is calling for measures that would give Brussels the power to restrict unwanted foreign takeovers of key industries. This according to the Financial Times. A top concern, China. Beijing invested around €3.2 billion in France alone in 2016, a 1,300% increase from just 10 years ago. Chinese state-backed groups have taken over large chunks of France's transport sector. In 2014, for example, a Chinese-led consortium bought a 49.9% stake of Toulouse's airport Blagnac. They've also gone after parts of Germany's high-tech industry, including buying rights to the KUKA robot last year, despite the German government's attempts to stop the purchase. Macron will present his plans at a Brussels summit next week, but he's expected to receive backlash from pro-free trade EU countries, including the Netherlands, Scandinavian nations, and the Baltic states.
Right, Brian, moving on to the markets. How are they looking this morning?
Well, U.S. tech shares took a beating yesterday. Asian markets following Wall Street's lead today, with tech going soft and the yen at a two-week low against the dollar. Mixed results on the major indexes, with the Nikkei and the Hang Seng seeing gains. Shanghai and Korea's Kospi index both in the red. European markets, however, opening with gains across major indexes. Some investor optimism here as that Greek bailout deal proceeds, and as Emmanuel Macron looks set for a large parliamentary majority in France on Sunday's elections. Well, let's take a look at some more of today's business headlines. Japanese auto parts supplier Takata is expected to file for bankruptcy within the month. The company is facing billions of dollars in liability from defective airbags linked to dozens of deaths and hundreds of injuries worldwide. The company is reported to be working towards an acquisition deal by U.S. parts maker Key Safety Systems. DuPont and Dow Chemical have cleared a key regulatory hurdle in their merger plans. U.S. antitrust authorities have approved the deal provided the companies sell off certain assets, including crop protection products. Dow and DuPont first announced the merger in late 2015 as a $130 billion stock deal. And an IT crash at British Airways that stranded thousands of passengers last month likely cost the airline £80 million. Parent company IAG released the estimate at a shareholders meeting Thursday, adding up the lost revenue, customer compensation, and rebooking and accommodation costs from the debacle. IAG says that an independent investigation into the incident is ongoing.
Well, it makes for one very expensive computer bug, Brian. Now, finally for business, one fashion house is taking threats of a Trump-related boycott perhaps not so seriously.
Yes, well, ever since Trump took office, customer-facing businesses have wrestled with how to handle political controversy around their perceived association with his administration. You may recall the dust-up around Nordstrom dropping Ivanka Trump's clothing line. Well, Dolce and Gabbana has been closely associated with First Lady Melania Trump. She's wearing a Dolce and Gabbana blazer, and her official portrait we saw there. Now, anti-Trump shoppers have called for a boycott, and designer Stefano Gabbana has responded with a special edition t-shirt, which reads #boycott Dolce and Gabbana. Retail price on that t-shirt, $245.
$245.
I don't always use irony correctly, but I think that counts as irony.
I think I'm going to have to agree with you there, Brian. Thank you so much for that. Brian Quinn there with the Business Roundup.